parallels in storytelling is a fairly common practice among all forms of media. Whether movie, book, or video game alike, it indicates the structure of a story in which two or more separate narratives are connected via character, event, or overarching theme, to explore not only multiple perspectives, but depending on the purpose of parallel narratives, to create irony, fill in the blanks within a mystery, reveal a character's ultimate motivation, build a sense of tension, or simply mirror that which the viewer already knows. It's more common than you think. Take a look into most non-linear stories and you'll quite frequently find a parallel to help in exploring the story at hand. The Last of Us Part 2 is one of these stories. And quite frankly, it is an incredible journey. In this video, I'm going to explore in depth some of the major plot points within the story as well as detail some of the incredible parallels within, both big and small, to help shine a light on the beauty that is The Last of Us Part 2. This exploration will most likely be broken up into a couple separate videos in the interest of preventing a watch time of over an hour. And perhaps this collection of videos will point out a moment that you hadn't noticed on your first playthrough. Warning, major spoilers ahead, both in the clips used and discussion. I'm even going to do a deep dive into a discussion about the ending. If you wish to avoid these spoilers, please put this on your watch later list and come back once you've completed the story. So let's start off with a deep exploration into the risky development arc of our lead protagonist, Ellie, in what I personally call the fall of a hero. Violence begets violence. In The Last of Us's ruthless and zombie-infested world, violence runs rampant everywhere, and we are constantly reminded of how dangerous it is to exist on a day-to-day basis. At first glance, the plot of The Last of Us 2 seems like standard fare. A newly introduced character does something monstrous at the expense of our well-known and beloved characters, and in turn, we follow our protagonist on her adventure with the end goal of justice and revenge. Prior to knowing and examining the inner working of the story, it is easy to jump to conclusions. The player, having built an attachment to Joel, can easily fall under the pretense that Abby is nothing more than the evil villain who is hell-bent on ruining the lives of our heroes. And the Wolves faction, the group that she's a member of, must be equally as monstrous, producing nothing more than a militia of sorts, with the sole goal of evil deeds. It is very easy to jump to this conclusion, because having played the original game prior to this experience, it is obvious that Joel and Ellie are the good guys, the heroes of this world. Right? In an age built upon instant gratification, it would have been obvious and expected to have this story stick to the run-of-the-mill revenge plot, one where the main protagonists, in this case Joel and Ellie, can never truly lose, narrowly avoiding close calls and always coming out the victor, regardless of how not in their favor things are for them. In some cases, even escaping the clutches of death because of something we call main character privilege. But this is not one of those stories. As we begin our pursuit of revenge as Ellie, our rage is almost akin to hers, having been forced to watch the ruthless murder of the beloved Joel alongside her. At this point in the story progression, our desire to exact revenge mirrors that of our protagonist. We ignore the fact that with each wolf member Ellie kills, there is a sudden cry of anguish as someone from this group calls out the name of the deceased in disbelief.
That's what I heard. Come here! Ambush!
The same could be said about when a dog is dealt with. Their owner is pained at the sudden loss of their companion. Or, if you take the owner out first, the dog mimics this pained reaction. We pay no mind to that because Ellie is the hero of this story. Right? It isn't long before Ellie's friends, the same ones who said they were going to help her exact revenge and find justice, start to question Ellie's increasingly violent and abhorrent methods as the pile of bodies in her wake climbs higher and higher. There's a sense of uncertainty that begins to bubble beneath the surface with every moment that the good guy crew attempt to question Ellie's increasingly more reckless decisions. But progress is definitely being made, as the list of accomplices who helped Abby on her mission to kill Joel start to dwindle, whether directly by Ellie's hand or not. With each name crossed off the virtual list of 8 people who can't get away with this and need to die, we end up one step closer to our true goal, finding and killing the vile and loathsome Abby. A bit further down the line, and dozens more bodies left to rot along the way, and we finally have cornered Nora in the spore-filled basement. Ellie wants information about Abby's whereabouts. Nora refuses to talk. Ellie is desperate to make her talk. At this point, it is obvious Nora is going to die. As her veins blacken with each haggard breath and she struggles to stand under the sheer weight of infection, it is quite literally impossible for either Ellie or the player to not know that Nora will reach her end very soon. Mercy is not exactly a word that can be easily tossed Nora's way. After having both participated in allowing the murder to take place, and then proceeding to say some detestable things about our beloved Joel long after the fact. So I won't go into speculation about the multitude of options Ellie had regarding how to go from there. But as we watch Ellie's face contort with rage, each swing of the metal pipe connecting with the crying Nora, each audible thump of beaten flesh, each splatter of blood painting the screen, each grisly strike darkens the surrounding emotion further and further. And we watch as Ellie is unraveled. The angsty, foul-mouthed teenager with an incredible sense of confidence and drive to find the silver lining is buried underneath a tremendous grief and trauma that has been suffered. And in her place is a woman standing over a wounded enemy. A metal object in her hand with the intent to kill. A woman hell-bent on an anger-fueled need for vengeance that must be satisfied at any cost without a second thought towards what must be done to achieve it. But Ellie is the hero of this story, so in comparison, her choices are obviously justified. Yeah, Ellie is one of the good guys. Right? This uncertainty becomes more evident when the perspective is changed, about halfway through the game, and we relive the previous 3 days in Seattle through the eyes of Ellie's archenemy. And it was a beautiful choice to have us do so. We begin with a memory, quickly being introduced to the benevolence of Abby's father, then a small jump forward to reveal his conflicted hesitation, yet desperate understanding that the only way to create a vaccine and possibly save the world is to take Ellie's life. We then are dropped into a nightmare where we learn that despite having successfully avenged her father, the memory of his death still haunts her mind. As we go through encounter after encounter, speaking to and learning pieces about people you know have already fallen to Ellie's hand, it becomes clear that Abby had killed Joel, not because she was forced in to fill the role of the bad guy, but because she was seeking justice against the man who killed her father. Much like the goal we had set as Ellie, the entire reason we have left Jackson for Seattle in the first place. And suddenly the lines drawn to distinguish a simple story of tribes such as us versus them or good versus evil have began to blur, and the thin delineation of the morally just perspective isolates the reminder that it all depends on the narrative we are witnessing to determine who is viewed as good and who is the enemy. This may be one of the more obvious parallels, but I was convinced by people who have heard me discuss this game at length that I had to include my perspective on it. Plus, it's important to establish what I would consider the most obvious parallel, so the introductions of the more subtle ones are easier to digest. On that note, we reached the end of the video. I apologize for the delay. My original intention was for this video to be a single piece, but upon reaching the hour-and-a-half mark, I obviously had to make some adjustments. What will happen now is this will become a 4-part series, each video remaining around the 10-minute mark. It'll help with clarity of nuance and digestibility. So again, thank you for your patience. The rest of the series will be up at a much faster pace, fingers crossed, so be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video.